Today, I am talking about VA disability claims for chronic rhinitis. I will talk about what it is, the evidence you need to win your claim, and how the VA rates chronic rhinitis. But before I get started, I want to tell you that this is a presumptive claim. So for those of you who are Gulf War era vets or post 9/11 vets that have traveled or deployed to a bunch of different countries over in the Middle East and just parts of Southwest Asia, this is something free that the VA is giving to you because of your service out there and being exposed to burn pits. So if you have this diagnosis already, as long as you got it after service, you probably would apply or be eligible under the presumptive factor to get this VA disability rating, which could be anywhere from 0, 10, or 30%. If you have symptoms of rhinitis, which I had for a long time before I even figured out I had rhinitis, go to the doctor and figure out if what you have is rhinitis or something different. Mainly because you want to know what you have, but in terms of VA disability, if you got it and you're presumptive, you might as well put in a claim for it because you deserve it. I do want to throw out a real quick disclaimer here. Because this is a presumptive claim, I know a lot of folks like to go out to these claims consulting companies and pay them for getting you a rating. And I'm not judging anyone that's doing that. That's great. But if you served over there and you've been exposed to the burn pits or you're eligible because of this being a presumptive claim, don't pay them when you could put in this disability claim on your own just by watching a few YouTube videos and figuring it out, or just going to your VSO and getting it for free and just getting some points on the board versus paying a couple $1,000s to get something that would have really taken you not much effort. So jumping into this thing, what is chronic rhinitis? It's really just inflammation of the nose. My doctor, my ENT, explained it to me as just kind of like an overactive nerve, I guess, in your nose that creates, your nose to run or just creates a lot of postnasal drip. Sneezing, congestion, those are things that I experience on a regular basis. There's different kinds of rhinitis. The most common is probably the allergic rhinitis. The VA actually has 3 different rating criteria. I'm only going to talk about one in this. I'll briefly touch on the other 2. But non-allergic and allergic are the ones that I hear about a lot. Before you submit your claim, obviously you want to start building up some medical evidence. You want to, if you have the diagnosis, great. As long as it's current, and if you got it after service, that's great. I don't know how long you've been out, but just make sure that you have a current diagnosis. I would say probably within the last year, maybe 6 months. If you've got it more than that, I would probably just go back to your ENT or your doctor that diagnosed you with it just to make sure it's still there. And that's the main criteria there. If you are presumptive eligible, just make sure that you're in that burn pit registry or write a personal statement. Paint that picture for the VA disability rater, letting them know, hey, I'm applying for chronic rhinitis. I served in, wherever, right? I served in this country during this time. I was exposed to burn pits. I am eligible. I'm presumptive eligible based on the PACT Act. And then talk about your symptoms, right? Like they're going to want to see that you have, these symptoms of, sneezing, runny nose, congestion, whatever it is. You could talk about the severity. I'll go in very shortly to talk to you about what the criteria is so that you kind of know what would be important for you to write. But a lot of that stuff's going to be documented by a doctor anyways for this specific disability. But you want to make sure that if you are not presumptive, you want to make sure that you do provide them with a service connection so that you can get this disability approved. As I've mentioned in my past YouTube videos, and I'm sure you guys have watched a lot of YouTube videos, you do need three things to win a disability claim. You need to have that current diagnosis. You need to have an event or an injury or something that happened during the military. And then you need a nexus connecting your disability or your diagnosis to that incident, which is a nexus. So in this case, for rhinitis, you're going to have something that happened in the military that shows that you got it. And really, a diagnosis in the military, if you are not presumptive, should help you win this disability claim, as long as you still have a current diagnosis, right? Like the VA is not going to pay you for something you got diagnosed for in the military if you don't currently have it. So just making sure you have that. Personal statements also help. With this one, it'll help, but it might not be necessarily what you need. I think if anything, is just maybe documenting how your nose is blocked on a regular basis might help you with the claim. So that's, and I'll talk more about that here in a minute. So the rating criteria that you guys need to be familiar with, and if I'm submitting a claim, and my advice to you is do the same thing, is go into 38 CFR, which is where the VA, it was basically the law for the VA, right? It's the handbook. 38 CFR Part 4, you're going to that schedule for rating disabilities, and you're going to find diagnostic code 6522, which is where the VA finds its criteria for allergic and vasomotor rhinitis. It's also where they find it for non-allergic rhinitis. They also have two other rhinitises that they track on as well. I won't go into those today, but I will tell you it's 6523, which is bacterial rhinitis, and then 6524, which is granulomatous rhinitis, which is a really bad one. Maybe I'll make a video on that one later on, but for the purposes of this video, we're talking about allergic, non-allergic, or vasomotor rhinitis, which is diagnostic code 6522. There's two rating criteria on there for this one. It's either a 10 or a 30. And with this one, really for a 10%, you're not going to have polyps, but you're going to have a greater than 50% obstruction of nasal passage on both sides, or complete obstruction on one side. And this is kind of where your personal statement comes in. The VA wants to know that either you have blockage on one side completely, or you got 50% blockage. To get your 10%, I think this rating criteria is crazy. I talked to my my ENT, who I've been seeing for years, and I asked him to figure out what I have. He'll use like he'll scope your nose. He's scoped my nose a lot during procedures, but there's really no way for them to like get the math exactly how the VA wants it. But he can kind of tell if you're halfway blocked up or you're completely blocked up. One idea that I had was I was just going to take daily videos of me trying to breathe in and out of my nose and document it that way and send it to the VA. That's how the CMP examiner did it for me whenever they were testing, is they just had me plug one side of my nose and show my blockage. So that's the criteria for 10%. To get a 30% criteria, which would be considered a high value claim, is if you have polyps and your doctor is essentially just going to scope your nose, and to show you have polyps, you get a 30% rating right off the bat. So that's a pretty significantly high rating for any VA disability claim. So those are the two criteria. You can also go 0% on this one. I was 0% when I first pushed it in because I didn't submit the right medical evidence. So if you're watching this, you have this, or if you're trying to appeal this, just get the right medical evidence. Talk to your ENT, talk to your doctor, get yourself properly scoped. Don't rely on the CMP examiner. They're not really there to be your friend. Some of them will be helpful, but they may not go above and beyond to make sure they check everything to ensure that you're rated properly.